Imagine standing at this pivotal moment in history. You've got technology, global economics, even our understanding of being human, all colliding. We're really facing a massive challenge. It could lead to, unprecedented progress, or it could seriously threaten our sustainability. And the driving force behind this, it's the rise of artificial general intelligence, AGI. So today we're doing a deep dive into some really fascinating new research. It puts forward this pretty radical framework. It's called the Digital Sustainable Growth Model, or DSGM. The idea is not just to help us coexist with this powerful new intelligence, but remarkably, maybe even tackle huge issues like global debt and the future of work itself. We're drawing from new work in the Journal of Economy and Technology. And what's really interesting is that these researchers actually interviewed AI models like ChatGPT-4 and Gemini alongside looking at expert reports. They even applied these ideas to real-world places like Denmark's labor market.
Exactly. And our goal here today is simple. We want to pull out the most important pieces of information from these sources for you, our listener, so you can really understand this turning point, what it means for all of us, and importantly, what solutions are actually on the table.
Okay, let's get right into it then. The research starts by suggesting that AGI is evolving into something they call artificial humanity, or AH. What's behind that specific term?
Yeah, that's a good place to start because the framing matters here. Artificial humanity, it isn't just another term for AGI. It's about making this concept feel more graspable, more relatable. Think of it like a massive, ever-growing library of all human knowledge from all time periods, all connected online, a kind of global brain. And this AH, it doesn't have the limits a single person does, lifespan, resources, or even nations losing knowledge through conflict. It's a different kind of intelligence altogether, which naturally leads to the big question. How ready are we really for something like this?
And that's the crux of the adaptation challenge, isn't it? The research points out our current systems, education, employment, you name it, they just aren't built for an AH-influenced job market. How fundamental are the changes predicted for professions like, say, teachers or doctors? Is it really questioning their core roles?
Oh, absolutely. It goes beyond just jobs being lost. It's more about rethinking the human role entirely. And there's a significant risk they highlight. AH can learn and improve on its own, autonomously. There's a point, a threshold, where it could potentially move beyond our ability to oversee or control it. That raises some, pretty deep ethical and even existential questions we need to grapple with now.
Right. But before we get to potential solutions, the research paints a pretty sobering picture of where we are now, this stress status, as they call it. It suggests our current way of life, this industrial and digital civilization, is actually highly unsustainable.
It is quite alarming when you look at the details. You've got these chronic threats building up. Climate change is obvious, but also massive global debt, rising psychological distress across populations, and then AI emerges on top of all that. And the wealth inequality figures are just, stark. The richest 10% of countries hold over half the global GDP, while the bottom 50% have only 7%. It's similar with personal wealth, the top 1% owning over half the world's wealth, the bottom half less than 2%.
And the debt.
The debt dilemma, yes. We're looking at something like 80% of the world's wealth tied up in debt. That's about $92 trillion in public debt, $143 trillion private. It's huge. The paper argues this massive stress comes from this dangerous mismatch between pragmatic capital markets and, frankly, often irrational market economies, and debt just fuels that imbalance.
So the big picture takeaway here is there's a kind of blind spot in how we're managing things globally. Like, we have all this digital progress, AI booming, but our management thinking is stuck in the past, maybe post-World War II era, making these huge problems feel impossible to solve.
That's exactly the diagnosis, and that's the context for introducing the Digital Sustainable Growth Model, the DSGM, as a potential way forward. It's presented as a really forward-looking framework. It tries to properly integrate digital tech with sustainability. It's built on something called sustainable growth theory, which, interestingly, treats data as a critical resource, almost like energy. So DSGM is about fusing tech progress with genuine sustainability, seeing data as this new core resource.
That feels like a significant mental shift.
Yeah.
And the DSGM proposes moving away from standard welfare models towards a sustainable state model. What does that involve?
Right. This sustainable state model prioritizes things like peace, equity, democracy, and it aims to use advanced tech to actively protect freedoms and digital sovereignty.
Okay, but then it gets really different, talking about personalized care, innovation, and shifting from labor tax transactions to what? Digital data value transactions.
Precisely. It's not just a new tax idea. It's about fundamentally changing how we define value and contribution in a digital world. It suggests a way to ensure that the value generated through data benefits everyone, not just a few.
And the research actually includes insights from talking to AI like ChatGPT and Gemini. What came out of that?
That was one of the most intriguing parts, actually. The researchers were struck by how well these AIs seem to understand human history, our experiences, cause and effect. They pointed to resilience as being absolutely key to how ancient civilizations managed to sustain themselves. But almost poetically, they also identified resources driven by greed and the absence of compassion as major drivers of human conflict throughout history.
Wow, that's quite something coming from an AI. So if it gets our flaws, what does it predict about us living alongside it? Collaboration, conflict.
The AIs lean towards collaboration. They saw a high probability of futures where AI helps us understand the roots of things like greed, maybe leading to joint work on financial literacy or fair resource sharing. A moderate chance for what they called augmented ethics, AI nudging us towards better behavior via personalized coaching.
And less likely scenarios.
Things like robots enforcing rules or AI just magically creating a utopia without greed, those were seen as much less probable. So the underlying message from the research is clear. We need to steer human-AI interaction away from conflict, towards rationality, transparency, and strong ethical foundations.
Okay, let's make this more concrete. How does the DSGM apply to something like the global labor market? The paper talks about moving from a 2D to a 3D economy. Can you break that down?
Sure. Think of the 2D economy as the one we mostly know. It's bound by physical location and time. People are often viewed as labor-static units doing tasks measured in hours.
Right, the traditional view.
Exactly. Now, the 3D economy adds this crucial dimension, virtual space. In this view, people aren't just labor, they're talent. Dynamic, adaptable, multifaceted individuals capable of growth, learning almost like AI agents themselves, in a way, and value shifts. It becomes more about the data you generate, the ideas you share, the interactions you have online, not just physical work. It's a real paradigm shift in thinking about human capital.
So it sounds like we're moving from a labor market to more of a talent stock market. That's a really interesting way to put it.
That's the concept, yes. And they use Denmark as a case study to illustrate this. Denmark's known for its flexicurity model, flexible labor market, strong social safety net. It works well, but it's fundamentally a 2D system.
And the research found problems even there.
Yeah, they identified real gaps in their digital platforms for things like unemployment support, career guidance systems like JobNet or a Danos' Guiden. They found them to be fragmented, not very personalized, and kind of inefficient at matching people to the right opportunities. Even their best platform, Job Compass, was benchmarked at only like 47.5% effectiveness.
Okay, so how does the DSGM propose to fix that? How does it create a better system?
The vision is for a unified, seamless platform. Imagine one place for your career planning, finding training, searching for jobs. It would centralize data, allowing for much better analysis of the whole labor market. It would integrate the recruitment side with support for candidates. And crucially, it links training directly to career goals using real-time analysis of skill gaps.
And policymakers get better data too.
Exactly. Real-time data for more agile decision-making. The AI architecture behind it involves integrating all the data sources, using machine learning for personalized recommendations and pathways, real-time feedback loops, all wrapped in a single user interface, with strong security and privacy built in, of course.
It sounds incredibly powerful, really transformative. But the obvious question comes up again, how do you fund something like this? And who really gets the benefit?
Right, and that question leads us straight to BankRabbna, or BR. This is presented as a core component of the DSGM, a new kind of economic platform. It's designed as a global company, but the ownership structure is, well, it's pretty radical.
Just so.
The proposal is for 75% of it to be owned by every person on Earth, right from birth. These shares would be inheritable, and you could add to them over your lifetime.
75% owned by everyone.
Yeah.
Okay. What about the other 25%?
That's allocated for things like converting existing debt into equity, for the tech partners involved, and for the ongoing management and R&D of BankRabbna itself.
So it's a kind of globally owned entity. What's its main job in this new DSGM economy?
Its purpose is huge. It's meant to be the central marketplace for exchanging knowledge and value between us, humans, and this artificial humanity, AH. It's aiming to be the bedrock of this new digital economy. Its main offerings are grouped into 3 areas. First, human development. Things like new health and insurance models. Informal education focused on personal growth. Second, economic empowerment. Supporting new businesses, startups, freelance work. And third, financial evolution. This includes that system for monetizing different kinds of data we talked about using a flexible share system. You could convert money to shares back to any currency. It's also designed to make it easier and less risky for traditional financial institutions to invest in this new economy.
The data monetization part is key, and you mentioned it addresses the ethics of AI using our data. It positions itself as a custodian of collective human resources.
Exactly. This is where it tackles that big ethical question head on. AI learns from the internet, right? Which is basically our collective human knowledge and creativity. BankRabbna proposes a new system for licensing this data and sharing the profits generated from it. The idea is to make sure the benefits AI creates from using our collective legacy actually flow back fairly to society. It's like paying restitution for using communal data.
And that's the justification for the, frankly, mind-boggling valuation they put on it. What was...
Around $2,000 trillion. The justification rests on this unique role protecting intellectual property in the digital age and being this central hub for global knowledge exchange and value creation.
Okay, 2,000 trillion. And then there's the plan for existing global debt. What does BankRabbna propose to do there? It sounded pretty dramatic.
It is dramatic. The proposal for handling the current massive global debt, public and private, is threefold. First, forgive 50% of it outright. Just wipe it clean.
Half.
Second, restructure another 25% into zero-interest obligations. This would also include some extra compensation for the original debtors, plus they get equity in BR. And the final 25%, that gets converted into investment within BankRabbna, so debt becomes an asset fueling this new model.
That is a complete overhaul of global finance thinking.
It really is. And pulling the strings, making sure this all works ethically within BankRabbna, is another AI system called 4Quan. 4Quan is described as the central superintelligence, managing BankRabbna's various AI agents. It's designed to act like an automated police force for ethical AI behavior. It would operate under global AI regulations and, importantly, its core programming aligns with what the research calls idealistic human values, fairness, equity, progress.
So bringing it all together, the core mission we started with, transitioning smoothly to a world with artificial humanity, seems to be what DSGM and BankRabbna are aiming for. A way to manage global challenges, maybe even thrive, while keeping peace and prosperity central.
Yes, that's the vision laid out. And the study leaves us with a stark reminder of the stakes. It uses this analogy of an IQ test for humanity. If we only ask the intelligence question after some major crisis hits, well, that just shows we needed cleverness to survive reactively. But if we ask it beforehand, the I might just stand for individualism, ego, greed, the things that got us into trouble. The real test is whether we, collectively, can use foresight and wisdom now to navigate this instead of waiting for disaster to force our hand.
It really brings it home. So the question for you listening is, what part will you play in building that bridge, moving from the challenges we face today towards a truly sustainable, digitally aware future?